Let me start with something that might sound a little familiar. Have you ever caught yourself standing in the kitchen, staring into the fridge like it's about to answer all your life's questions, and thought, well, how did I get here? I don't mean in a dramatic way. I mean in that quiet, ordinary, slightly puzzled way that, it sneaks up on you. Well, you're looking for the mustard. Well, instead, you find a jar of something you don't remember buying. Well, that moment, when you realize time has moved along rather enthusiastically, and you're standing here thinking, wasn't I just younger a minute ago? Well, nobody told us that aging would feel like this on the inside. I still feel like me, curious, hopeful, occasionally silly. But now my body sometimes sends me, these messages I didn't ask for. Things like stiff knees in the morning, or a shoulder that, makes a grinding sound like popcorn when I move it. It's as if my spirit and my joints, they've stopped consulting each other. One of them's ready for adventure, and the other is, filing a formal complaint. And yet, even with all of that, something strange happens as we get older. Well, we start to wonder if we missed our chance, not loudly, just quietly in the background of our thoughts. We look at our lives and think, maybe we should have tried harder, been braver, taken that leap, or said yes when we said no. We imagine some invisible deadline that we somehow crossed without even noticing. It's as if life sent out a memo that we never received, and now we're standing here thinking, wait, am I late? But here's the funny thing. Late compared to when? Compared to 20 years ago? Yesterday? Some imaginary timetable that no one ever actually explained? Because as far as I can tell, life doesn't really run on a clock. It runs on courage, curiosity, and the occasional cup of tea. And maybe a nap. Oh, definitely a nap. I didn't start some of the most meaningful things in my life until long after society would have considered it sensible. And you know what? They mattered just as much. In fact, maybe more, because by then I knew who I was. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I was just trying to feel alive. That's one of the little gifts of aging no one talks about. You slowly stop performing and start being. You care less about what looks good and more about what feels right. And honestly, that is a relief. There's a certain freedom that comes with realizing you don't have to prove anything anymore. Well, you don't have to be impressive. You don't even have to keep up. You just have to be you. And you can do that in jammies and slippers if you want. Well, preferably the good ones, with a soft lining. Life gets much more manageable when you're warm and comfortable. Sometimes people say, I'm too old to start something new. I always want to smile when I hear that because if you're breathing, you're not done. You might not start a marathon unless you're feeling especially ambitious. But you can start something small, a new habit, a new way of thinking, a new story about who you are. And those small starts, they add up. We have this idea that big change requires big effort. But that's not really how it works. Most of the time, change happens quietly. It starts when you decide to be a little kinder to yourself. When you stop calling yourself lazy or foolish and start calling yourself human. When you choose curiosity over criticism. When you laugh and maybe when you have another cup of tea instead of giving up for the day. I think one of the most surprising things about getting older is how brave we become about wanting joy. We're not interested in collecting trophies anymore. We're not. We're interested in collecting moments, a good laugh, a meaningful conversation, a quiet morning where no one expects anything from us except that we exist. That's not giving up. That's getting wise. We've spent decades being responsible, useful, productive, and polite. At some point, it's okay to say, what would actually make me happy? Even if the answer is something small and simple like, well, sitting in the sunshine, or learning a new song, or finally writing that story that's been living in your head for years. If you've ever thought, I wish I'd done things differently, congratulations. You're a perfectly normal human being. We all have those moments. But here's the beautiful truth. You don't have to redo your whole life to feel better about it. Well, you just have to decide what you want this part to be. This part still counts. It still matters, and it still belongs to you. Sometimes that means letting go of old regrets. Sometimes it means forgiving yourself for not knowing what you know now. And sometimes it just means saying, all right, let's see what this next chapter looks like. You don't need a 5-year plan. You just need a little willingness to keep going. Aging doesn't make you invisible. It makes you experienced. It makes you interesting. It gives you stories, scars, laughter lines, well, wrinkles, I guess, and a perspective that you didn't have yet. You're not behind. You're exactly where you are, which is the only place you can ever be. So if you're sitting there today wondering if it's too late, let me tell you something gently and honestly. It's not. It's not too late for kindness, for curiosity, for joy, for trying something new. Not for loving your life a little more than you did yesterday. And before I go, let me ask you something just between you and me. What's one small thing you'd still love to try or change? Nothing huge, just a little whisper of a dream. Sometimes naming it is the bravest thing we do. You're not too old, you're not too late, and you're definitely not done. I'm glad you're here. At first, we'll be strangers, but hopefully after a wee bit of time, we can become friends. I'll leave you now to ponder over the ideas I've shared, and if you have ideas and experiences you'd like to share, please leave them in the comments. We'd love to see them and hear from you. Meanwhile, take care, keep smiling, love ya. Until the next time, bye for now.